Alright, so I'm going to show my little grow room setup. I've been replacing bulbs and trying to organize a little, get ready for seed starting again. This first shelf is a heavy plastic one. It normally would have 4 shelves on it. I have 3. Yeah, the top one don't count, it's too high up. But I primarily use it for storing some of my, well, some of that's bee stuff, and some of it is my plant fertilizers, fish emulsion, and whatnot. So on this first shelf, I put some of my taller stuff. I have this big sage plant I brought in. I want to try some starts off of it, I think, this spring. This is my poor sad little pineapple. It's 2 or 3 years old, but I need to repot it and probably take it outside in the summer. This is a citronella or mosquito plant. These are actually starts I did, I believe, last summer. And then I've been experimenting with trying to grow turmeric or ginger, and I believe I've had better luck growing some little ginger bulbs. I don't believe any of these are turmeric. I don't think I had any survive. But it's just experimenting. It's too short of a season we have here, and I have to get it all coordinated to when I actually get the bulbs sprouting and when I go to harvest them, because I'd like to take them outside during part of the growing season. So this one shelf we're looking at here up close is actually a wooden one I built, and it has 4 levels. Well, 1, 2, 3 levels actually. About 6 feet high, 2 feet wide by 4 feet long, and it has 4 sets of shop lights on each level, except for the bottom one I use for storage. My other cats used to walk around on the bottom a lot, and so I just didn't put any plants down there anymore. I do have, I think, 1 shop light I have to replace. It was a cheap $10 one I bought quite a few years ago, but I bought quite a few of those and I had more trouble with them than if I spent $20 on ones that, you know, they're just a lot better. So a few of the little things I have growing here. My parents and I have been trying to grow sweet potatoes here in Minnesota. It's a little soil conditions have to be right. Can't have had grass in it the year before. Has to have enough light, things of that sort. But we get a few, and we enjoy them while we can. But some of these started sprouting, so I just threw them in a container with some water, and be cut those and probably putting them in a jar to get rooting. It's going. And just some little plants I brought. This is a little annual. Don't remember what it's called. Don't have a tag in it right now. Mom and I have been trying to save some of them. This here is called a vinca vine. This was my mom's. She didn't want to babysit it, so I brought it. Most of my vinca vines are out in the shop. Of course, a few little aloe starts. There's Tuck. The cats like to, Tuck and Lacey like to sunbathe under the plant lights. Down here is my peripheral, loads of aloe plants. I need to, they've outgrown my space in their pots, and I think I need to just thin some and figure out what I want to use them for. Trying to figure out how I could harvest them, and besides freezing, get the gel and keep that over. I use it for wounds mostly, sunburns and burns and things of that sort, but it's also good for digestive ailments on the inside. It's just good skin care and internal care. I don't need the internal so much as some other members of my household. So, hello Tucky. Anyways, we'll kind of walk around here. It's a little crowded in this room. It's not a whole lot of space, but I have another one of those plastic shelves here. It's 4 layers again here, just like my big wooden one. And what I do, I actually start my seeds here. because it's closer in proximity to the lights. And I have this enclosed in plastic, plus I used to use those clear lid tops. So I have 3 of those shelves. I've been changing out my lights. Some of them have burned out, and I think I have a couple of other shop light type things that I have to set up. So those are 2-foot lights, and I put 2 of them in on each layer, and just use cool lights. I did used to buy some of the plant grow lights, but I noticed they don't necessarily carry any of them anymore. So when I built this shelf, you know, I had pine boards, some of them were pallet boards, and I used 2x4s and split them, and so I made this shelf. And we kind of wired it up with plug-ins, so that each individual lamp could be plugged in, and I could plug it into the main electricity plug-in. And I've had it for quite a while now. I've not had any problems with it, as long as I make sure I didn't have any shorts and stuff like that, and some of my electrical things, it's went pretty well. So I like this setup. I have to make some more room here. Get the other side of my aloes. So my other little plants here, I have some lavender and rosemary I started last year. Oh, this little guy died. It's sort of a fussy environment in here, and rosemary is particularly fussy. But just I kind of do a lot of experimenting and playing. This little parsley plant I salvaged. Here's some more starts of that citronella plant. And this is a little Martha Washington that I've saved. The first year you can't take cuttings off of these. They use plant inhibitors. That one right there. And so the plants don't grow as well. I'm not saying this little guy didn't. It's kind of sitting there, but I got it to root, which was more than my mom and I could do any other year. So that's basically my plant stand that I use for starting things and moving things around. Let me show you my other little, get it moved around here. Some more shelving I built for different things, cattle stuff and whatnot. So this is my little planting space. My amendments, soil amendments there. Underneath, I have some more organizing to do, but basically I have these plastic totes I use to store my soils in. So they're warmed up by the time I need to use them and unthawed from being outside. But this is a little bench I built. I put this plastic down there to help it clean. And then I have, oh, when I was doing the herbs, I had bought tags. Made them look more professional, and then pots and whatnot. So, but kind of just like all my little paraphernalia get shot. Like I said, I need to do some more organizing, but it's kind of my little workspace. And just got some more work to do in here. But so that's kind of my setup. And where I start my seeds. I don't get fancy with bulbs or anything like that. I just make sure I get something to do. There's Lacey sun tanning. I turned all the lights on so everybody could see my setup a little better, and so the kitties are enjoying that. But normally I don't have them all on if I don't have plants. And some of these are on, let's see, like a light switch. So I can easily turn them on and don't have to unplug them all the time. And so a few of mine are are set up that way. So that's kind of my plant room. I have another stand, a PVC one my mom and I made, oh my gosh, 25 plus years ago, and that's out in the shop, and I've been trying to set that up. But right now it has all my shop plants in there that I brought in from outside that can't stay outside, they need to winter over, and I'll do a little segment on that. So this is my setup. Alright, so this is my messy shop, but I wanted to show my plant shelf that my mom and I made over 25 years ago now or more. But I modified it since then, and I don't know if I could find the original directions, but I'll try to remember to look. This is basically my PVC pipe stand and all my little plants that I usually have outside, but mostly won't survive the winter here in Minnesota. So we'll kind of walk around and talk about this for a minute. I have 4-foot shop lights on there. I don't know if you can see that here. And I believe this is, if it ain't 2 feet wide, it's 1.5 feet at least. 8, you know, somewhere in there anyways. A person could put 2 sets of lights on, I think. And the general plan with this is that once I got my seedlings going and some of the cooler crops, lettuce, kale, whatever, could come out in here, because it doesn't go down to freezing, but it doesn't get overly warm, and something that could tolerate the cold a little more. So the idea behind these is you have these 3-way elbows. You get the 2-way there, 3-way, and in the middle, on certain sections, you have 4-way, like right there. That's a 4-way elbow. Here's one here, and that's basically in the middle. So I use these are pet trays. They go in the pet cages, and technically I would not have them on this shelf. They would be sitting here on this one underneath, because when I use a 10 by 20 flats with the drainage holes in them, you would set them here lengthwise, so a person could get, oh, for sure, 2 flats in there. That I know for sure. Possibly 3. And then when you watered, the plants in the pot wouldn't be sitting in water, which is not necessarily always good, but it would drain down then into here, and then wouldn't also get on your lights that were below. So that's kind of what I've done in the past, and my general plan. So for the plants out here, we get geraniums and try to overwinter them. And a lot of these are patented. So we couldn't propagate them for reselling purposes, but we can propagate them for our own purposes. So that's what we try to do, is try to get out to winter over in these pots. And a lot of times when I move things from bigger pots like this, which I didn't do this year, I'll put them in smaller ones. Like here, these are basically 1 gallon pots. So I have, well, this is a couple of thyme plants in here actually. They don't do well in our winters. So I bring those in, try to see if I can keep them over. Sometimes our winters get a little too long, and I can't, it's better if I can get them outside, bring them in the night. So I gotta try to set up, I made some wooden plant stands, and what I would want to do, that I had out here and I was storing stuff on, but what I'd like to do is make them so they kind of were scootable, mobile, and I could get them in through the garage door. We'll just look at my mess here as I've been reorganizing. So they got to get through there, and mine were pretty tall and not, so I'd have to do some modifying on them. But then I could just roll them out, roll them back in, whatnot. So that's still kind of, well, revamping process, that's what I'll call it. So I do have some roses here. This is a mini white rose. As you can see, it's starting to get some growth going on it again. Our days get longer, and sometimes that's what happens. It'll need some trimming this spring. This is a mini red. Actually, this flower was blooming, it was about mid-October, and it was a little tiny bud when it started. And it's kind of been preserved ever since. It's only opened up this much, and it's just been that way. But this tiny little red rose I put in this pot, it's just been hanging on. I have some lavender in here. The hardier lavender probably could overwinter here, but my heavy clay soil doesn't exactly make that the best of environment for them. So I usually bring my lavender in and hope that it survives, and all I have to do is clean it up in the spring and put it back outside. And these little mini roses, I've been actually taking cuts off. See if we can see that one there. Forget who that came off of. Anyways, I put them in soil and keep them somewhere where they're not completely in the sun, so they don't dry out. And I get little starts, and I've gave my mom some of those and whatnot. I usually don't sell them because 9 times out of 10 these plants are patented, and you can't resell them. So here's a little oregano I have. And I didn't get out in my garden, so I was kind of cleaning stuff out, and I cleaned some of them out and put them in pots. But I think this is one I bought or started. And then I have my rosemary. Rosemary is really fussy plant to overwinter. I don't bring it in the house because of that. It usually starts, this is sort of, yeah, this one's starting to show it. I've lost one already. It's starting to show some browning in the leaves. And I think part of that has to do with having too wet of feet. It's a more of a Mediterranean plant. And then I have, this is the mother of my cuttings, Mosquito citronella plant. It's huge. I mean, let's see if we can, it's a little dark, can't see. You can see kind of the full height of it there. Well, here's a barrel. I think those are about 3 feet tall or so. And then this little, there's 4 of these here. This plant here is kind of wobbling around in the camera. Is a lemon verbena plant, and it's an herb. It's actually a shrub, but it doesn't overwinter here. It's more of a zone 7, I think, plant. I love the smell. It's a great for teas and cooking and whatnot. But I love it. One year I went down to Shady Acres down in the cities here in Minnesota. I don't even know if they're running anymore. And they'd made a lemon verbena lemonade. Well, basically a base recipe with lemonade. And they put this herb, filled the jar up with the herb and poured the lemonade in there and then let it steep. I mean, that was the best lemonade I'd ever had. I'm not a big lemonade drinker. Sometimes a little too sweet for me. But that was the best tasting stuff I'd ever had. So I just fell in love with that plant. And I've started this one too, but you gotta get the wood and get it growing again in the spring. And then you can get a shrubby start from off of it. And then, but I don't do a lot of it because it's a weird time of the year, and then by the time I get started and get anything growing, it's kind of later in our season, and everybody buys stuff early and then enjoys it, and then our season's over with. this rose here, it's kind of scraggly right now because it's lost all of its leaves. It's actually a Mr. Lincoln hybrid tea. And I've had this in a pot for forever. 10 years or more, I believe. Hybrid teas do not winter over overly well. You can get a lot of losses in the wintertime. Even if you cover them, bury them, do the whole 9 yards. Styrofoam caps thing, yeah, just you don't put plastic over them. If it gets warm enough, they heat up in there, they grow, and then it gets cold, and pretty much shoots the plant out the door. And a lot of these are grafted on a rootstock. And actually, one year I thought I had lost a plant, and was getting flowers, sprouts from the rootstock. And I thought, well, I'll wait and see, because the flower was totally different and everything, and I let it go. And then this past year, well, I threw some of my strong chicken manure in there, and it helped the plant. So I had a whole bunch of little roses blooming, actual Mr. Lincoln roses off of it this year. So it got a second life. And I do have some garlic in here. That's not onions. My dad has gotten some of that seed garlic. And I have been, I just threw them in the pots because I didn't get them. I was, like I said, I'm revamping my gardens. And so I didn't get them replanted. So I just threw them in soil in the pots. And of course they're growing. And it's cold enough in here. They're kind of staying pretty mellow for not going overboard. So hopefully the thought is I can maybe replant them in the spring. Split them up a little bit. I've done that in the past, not this way, but dug them up in the spring when they started sprouting, and then split the bulbs up and replanted them when I didn't get to them in the fall. So garlic can be planted here in the fall or in the spring. And this little guy is an annual, well, it's a bulb. And I forget what it's called, something my mom gave. Is it I have to ask her again. Anyways, it has pretty little blue or purple flowers on it. And she gave me a bunch of them. She didn't want to take care of them. I just kept them in pots. And they need to be split this year, but they've been in pots for a couple of years now, and I just kind of let them do their thing and take them back outside and water them or fertilize them with some fish emulsion, and then they keep on going. But they have cute little flowers on them, and looks like I gotta water if he thinks they're a little dry. So this is kind of, wasn't the sole purpose of this particular shelf, but it's what it's doing right now. And I don't have the lights on because, well, it wouldn't really help. And this time of the year, it's better just to have the natural light coming in. My messy top from there, that's from the west, so we don't get a lot of light. Just come in and take care of the plants that way. They kind of I kind of make them go into a semi-hibernation. So, because the shop don't get much warmer than 40 degrees in here, unless I plan on working on here quite a bit. So that is my PVC pipe shelf, and maybe this will give people some ideas. At some point I might try to figure out how many elbows and length of pipe, I'll measure. Basically, I'll measure from like here to here, on over, up. And I'll try to get some basic measurements to give people an idea of what they might need. And I believe this is 1-inch pipe. And as you can see, I have quite a bit of weight on it, and it seems to be handling it pretty good. And mostly because I have this middle section. I actually think We had this, I was trying to remember, original was either half the size height-wise, or it was half the size width-wise, I forget. And I expanded it. So, yeah, I just kind of pulled some parts of it apart and then got some more pieces and then cut and redid it again. But this I find quite handy, and a person could even use this in the house for that matter. As long as you had these trays to catch your water in. It could probably be used for growing fodder for things like rabbits and people and whatnot. So I think it could be a really versatile shelf. Sure, probably not made as cheap as just going and buying a shelf. But this one actually has been around for quite some time and never been out in the elements except for here in the shop. And it's held up quite well. So I'm overall pleased with the performance of it in that respect, because I'm usually I'm not a plastic. It's just not, I don't go all in. I try to stay away from plastic as much as I possibly humanly can. It's almost impossible to get away from. But in this case, I found this to be quite resilient and usable. So indoor use, yes, this would work quite well. And like I said, you could put 2 instead of 1 shot like a person could put 2 and get a little more light on your plants in that space. So I will close this out and we'll go on to the greenhouses structures outside. Thanks.